This game is so good.
Oh yeah, baby, we making another bite-sized review on a small indie game that came out a few years ago. But seriously, The Messenger was such a treat to play. I had such a wonderful time playing this game. These indie developers will sometimes dance all over these major studios with their passion for making the games, and it just shines through in The Messenger. There is just so much passion packed into this tiny game that every single nook and cranny has something going on. The developers love video games, and you can see it through their inspiration in almost every single part of the game. The writing is witty and honestly made me laugh from time to time. The Messenger has so much charm jam-packed into it, I could not help but smile. This game is like one of the old NES era games with a lot less of the bullshit that comes with that title. The Messenger strikes such a good balance with difficulty that it didn't ever seem unfair when I was playing through the game. There are some difficulty spikes that happen, like the climb up the mountain, but for me at least, it was more of a difficulty shift than a spike. I think that after this happens, the game stops holding your hand as a player and has given you all the tools you need to succeed and just lets loose. This game does checkpoints extremely well, making sure that they are placed after a long and difficult challenge so you can get a breather after you completed something that took you multiple tries to get. And the death mechanic, while sometimes forgiving, also has its price by making the player pay to Quarble, the demon of greed. He's honestly just a cute little guy who follows you around and collects your debt that you owe him for saving your life. It's little characters like Quarble and the Phobekins, who are these little cute guys who have a phobia of something and you have to go and save them, or all these different bosses who have an hysterical dialogue that really give this game its polish. The game doesn't take itself too seriously, and that's something that I just love about it. The controls in this game are so tight, and the movement options make the game just so enjoyable and fun. The ability to regain your jump after you hit an enemy just adds so many different movement options. But there was one ability that I forgot about countless times. And if you are planning on playing this game, I want you to remember, use the Grappling Hook. This single ability can help so much with mobility, and at least for me, for some reason, just went to the back of my head after I obtained it. Of course, I would randomly use it to pull myself onto a ledge or to get through some spikes, but it can pull you to any object that the player can hit, and this opens up an entire new world of movement possibilities. Make sure that you use the movement properly in this game, and it will skyrocket your enjoyment. Alright, so now that we got all of that out of the way, you are now entering the spoiler zone. This game has so much good content built into it that you have to go and experience it yourself. So if you don't want spoilers, click below to skip to the conclusion of the video. Okay? We cool? Holy shit, the ending part of this game is so good. After you beat what you think is the final boss of the game, you learn that everything is actually a loop, and you go back to the village that you started at and you become the Western hero that delivered the message to you in the first place, and you give the message to the new messenger. And then you jump into the 16-bit mode of the game where every single area has new music that adds different instrumentals, and the color palettes in the levels become more detailed, and everything gets a new sprite with more detail, and oh, it's so good. Every single different area has been revamped with new secrets, but it's still the same layout. Also, there's this part where you're running from this dragon, right? And you finally get to the end, and you have to fight him, and you finally beat him, and you learn that you freed him of his curse, and then he becomes Manfred, the coolest character in this entire game. After all of this, the entire map opens up to you as a player, and you have to go around in the future finding these music notes scattered about. But then there are these time rifts that you can use to jump in between the 8-bit versions of the levels and then the 16-bit versions of the levels, which adds so much to the already amazing level design. And then there's this prophet who tells you this cryptic bullshit about where the notes are, but you can just go back to the shopkeeper and buy hints from him for 300 time shards, and it just points to where you have to go on the map. And the thing that's perfect about this is that you can still go and explore at your own pace and find the music notes by yourself without ever using a hint. But if you're stuck, you can still just go back to the shopkeep and he'll help you out. You almost always have 300 time shards when you re-enter the shop after you've completed one of the quests. so there was never a moment where I had to stop my play and grind for them. The time rifts mentioned before just add so much because you're able to move back and forth from the future into the past, and you can go helping out different characters and finding new secrets. You go into the future and help the buff bros by grabbing the plant that they waited so long for that they died, and then coming back to the past and giving it to them for their stew. This final part of the game is such a wonderful time, and I loved every single second of it. It's where the game really shines through with its creativity, and it's just such a wonderful treat to play. The Messenger is another one of those indie games that you have to go and experience yourself. The story is extremely simple, and the game doesn't take itself too seriously, and the player can just get a good laugh from it. There's so much passion and charm seen in a game like this, and I cannot wait to see what Sabotage Studio does next with their future games. Go and experience The Messenger yourself. It is one of my favorite titles that I've played on this channel, and I cannot recommend it enough. 5 out of 5.